All right, this is exercise 2C of our ship builder game. This starts on the very end of 2B, so how we ended is we have a ship that turns and shoots the bullets, which disappears, and you can shoot the asteroids and they disappear, and the ship moves around the screen and goes off the edges. So this is going to be a longer video because I am going to show you a variety of different things. In the end, this actually might be different videos, but I'm going to say this in the first one. So the goal for this exercise is I'm going to show you how to reuse scripts from one graph to another. We are going to set up a fairly generic damage system so the ship and the asteroids can take damage. We are going to set up some animations so that there is a cool explosion, because right now this feels fairly anemic, right? They disappear. We want this to feel alive. We want the player to feel like they're accomplishing something or what they did was important. So we're going to be doing that. We're going to pull in some animations. We are going to destroy the asteroids so they explode and also make new asteroids. We are going to make an enemy with a normal movement, like a very basic side-to-side movement, and then we're going to make the enemy move in a much more interesting way. And then the player is going to also take damage and get destroyed and then restart. So let's get started. This first video is going to be about how to reuse code. So we have our ship, and the ship goes across the screen. But the asteroids don't. They just keep flying forever. In fact, if I look at one of the asteroids, you can see it just keeps going. It's going to keep going forever. It'll never stop. Eventually, it will destroy our physics system because it'll never stop moving. So let's fix that. And we're going to do that by learning about a thing called a subgraph. So let's go into our player. And all this is how I left it in the previous exercise. But we have this really long piece, section of code here, which is gross. It's very long, and now I could just copy and paste this to open up the asteroid thing, paste this in, but this is big. And so let's make it small and reusable. So I will copy and paste it, but I will only copy and paste it once. So what I'm going to do is create a new node called a subgraph. And a subgraph is a graph like these, but I can make a little piece of subsection and stick it in there. So one box will do a variety of things. So here's a subgraph. I'm going to give it a title. No, I won't. What I'm going to do is switch it to embed. Embed means I could put a bunch of stuff in here, but it would only be in this graph. And I want an embed, a graph embed. It'll ask me if I want to switch. I say yes. And so now I'm going to hit new. And in my visual scripts, I'm going to create one called object screen wrap. And now it's called object screen wrap, and it is a blank box. So there's no ins, no white arrows, no outs, and no inputs of any sort as well. So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to select all of this and hit Control C. Actually, I'm going to hit Control X. It has disappeared. I'm going to double click inside this screen graph. And now, instead of on start or on update or anything, I say input and output. I'm going to hit Control V, which pastes it all in. So now I have it. I'm not done yet, but I want to first set this up. So this has to be able to be in the flow. So what I'm going to do is click on the empty area, which gives me trigger inputs, trigger outputs, data inputs and data outputs, so I can put data in and spit it out. But right now I just want a trigger input, so I hit the plus. And everything could have a key, label, or summary. I'm just going to do a key, which is in. And I'm going to hit 1 on trigger outputs. I'm going to type out for the key. Everything has to have a key. And so now I'm also going to give this graph, and I'm going to create a new graph variable. Right, I always forget, you have to type in the name first. I'm going to call it object position. And make this a vector 3. And now I'm going to take all of these and switch them to object position. I could leave it as ship position, but I really only want object position because this is going to be generic to all objects that float around the player and the asteroids. So go to in, and then instead of going all the way down here and moving from set position there, I'm just going to add another thing in my sequence. This is purely for readability. So now I have my in, does all the checking for X and Y that I did before. And if I was really smart about this, I'd actually have these vectors as numbers I stick in, so I could adjust them later. But right now I'm not going to worry about it. So I have an in, I have an out, I have an object position, and now I can click back to my ship. And now I have an in and out, so that 3 that went to that giant block of code now just goes to this in. And hit Control S to save. Now let's test it. This is make sure that I didn't break anything, because if I did, I need to fix it. Sometimes we must wait for Unity to compile. Okay, I go across. Yep. Still works. Still works in both directions. So now I can take my asteroid, and I am going to double click. Really, I'm going to go to select. So I select the prefab. I'm going to go in the prefab. I'm going to edit the asteroid graph. And now I am going to add an on update. We weren't doing anything with on update because in the asteroids we just push it in one direction and just let it go. And it goes that way forever. They don't change directions or anything. But I can now add a subgraph and change it to graph. And select. So anything in Unity has this little circle next to it, brings up a selector, and so it'll only give me things of graph that I have. I'm going to do my object spring wrap, hook it in, and now when I hit play, I'll go back to my scene, and my objects will now wrap. So now all objects will fairly slowly wrap around. So I can now add this to any object that moves around the world, and when they hit one edge, they will wrap around to the other side. All right, so that's step 1. I'm going to stop recording and then restart to show my next step.